Good evening, I'm Emma Jane Vere and this is Television Tonga News. In the headlines, the King and Queen of Tonga to have an audience with Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace on Thursday. An official investigative report by the US Defence Force denies media reports which alleges Tongan soldiers for sleeping while on duty at Camp Bastion in Afghanistan when it was attacked. Kalamata Health Centre reopened. And non-government organisations in Tonga to benefit from aid donations from the European Union. These and more stories, including news from the Pacific, sports, world and the weather information later on in this bulletin. Let's take a look at the news in detail. Their Majesties, King Teboho VI and Queen Anaspao will have an audience with the Queen of England, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The King and Queen of Tonga will meet with England's monarch on Thursday morning at the Buckingham Palace. In a statement from the Prime Minister's office, Their Majesties are in London on official business for the preparations for the coronation in July 2015. While in London, Their Majesties will also, or they have met with, Their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester at Kensington Palace last Tuesday. Their Majesties, King Teboho VI and Queen Anaspao are also expected to return back to Tonga at the end of this month. They arrived in London after officiating at the September 3rd graduation ceremony at the University of the South Pacific campus in Suva and another similar graduation in the Solomon Islands. Earlier last month, Their Majesties also represented Tonga at the United Nations General Assembly, which was held in New York before travelling to London. An official investigative report carried out by the US Defence Force denies or disregards local and international media reports which alleges Tongan soldiers for sleeping while on duty in Camp Bastion in Afghanistan when it was attacked by Al-Qaeda militants. However, in this afternoon's parliamentary discussions, Lord Ma'afu told the House it received reliable information which denied the allegations against the Tongan soldiers. Fatai Whainga'a has more on that story.
The Minister in charge, Lord Ma'afu, told members of Parliament that he had received reports from the US military confirming that the Tongan soldiers were not responsible for what happened on September 2012 during the attack in Camp Bastion, Afghanistan. Lord Speaker, I've received a military report from the US via its attaché in Suva that the Tongan soldiers had nothing to do with the 2012 attack in Camp Bastion. The same report also clarifies that the allegations against the Tongan soldiers is misleading. This was further clarified by the Acting Commander of Tonga Defence Service, Captain Tony Fonokalafi, to Television Tonga News. The Tongan Defence Service has confirmed that the Tongan soldiers serving at Camp Bastion in Afghanistan did not sleep while they were on duty during the attack, and they were nowhere near the area which the attack occurred, which killed 2 US Marines last September. Reports from local and international media about the incident was based on a result of an investigation about the attack carried out by the US Defence Force. The investigation focused on allegations made by the US media that Tongan soldiers slept while on duty, which enabled an Al-Qaeda attack on parts of Camp Bastion, which resulted in millions of dollars of damage to several aircraft. However, Captain Fonokalafi insists that the tower the Tongan soldiers were responsible for was secure for the Al-Qaeda attack, and the attack occurred in other areas of the camp and not in the area where they were on duty. For Television Tonga News, I'm Fatai Whainga'a.
Non-government organisations in Tonga will benefit from aid from the European Union, provided they meet donor requirements. A one-day workshop was hosted by the Ministry of Finance and National Planning at the Free Wesleyan's Dr. Moulton Hall to reveal the various aid donations, its purposes and how to access it. Whanonga Veigoso has the details.
The guest of honour at the event was the Minister for Internal Affairs, Lord Vaya. He emphasized the importance of such assistance to non-government organizations, which are sometimes not recognized by the government. He adds it's a way of improving the standards of living of those who depend on such organizations. Furthermore, this bridges the gap between the private and government sectors and communities. He also encouraged the participants to use the aid money wisely. In addition, the workshop aims to teach the participants on the proper way of proposal writing and submissions in order to assess such grants. This also helps meet European Union rules and donor requirements. Speaking to Television Tongan News, a representative from the EU head office in Suva, Eleni Leveni Devi, explained the details of this fund.
This workshop is called an information session, and it is done every time we launch a call for proposal. A call for proposals is a procedure done by the European Union, whereby they release all the information with regards to a certain funds. So the call for proposal was launched on Friday, and this fund is supposed.
She also stressed the importance of being familiar with the EU rules and requirements for this aid.
And I'm thankful to the government of Tonga for this, that they insist on asking the European Union for training on this, because it's one thing having the fund to use, it's another thing using the fund according to the rules so that you do not end up using the funds ineligibly or end up having unused funds that have to be paid back to the European Union.
Also at the workshop was the Chinese ambassador to Tonga, His Excellency Huang Donghua, the Japanese ambassador to Tonga, His Excellency Dr. Kazuchi Kahamuro, among other participants. The EU has made available aid money worth 70,000 euros to non-government organizations in Tonga. For Television Tongan News, I'm Fononga Veikoso.
Kalamata residents and other areas nearby will have easy access to medical assistance with the reopening of the Kalamata Health Clinic. Furthermore, the clinic will be able to improve its services to people upon the completion of its renovation work. This was officially reopened by the Health Minister, Lord Tuiafitu. Anasiu Falekaona was there and filed this report.
Despite the heavy rainfall, it didn't dampen the spirits of Kolomotua residents as they celebrated the reopening of Kolomotua Health Clinic. The Minister of Health, Lord Tuafitu, reopened the newly renovated clinic. The renovation work is estimated at more than 60,000 pa'anga and funded by the Australian Rotary Club. In the remarks from the guest of honour, he thanked the Rotary Club for its generous assistance. This is not a small initiative. It is a wonderful surprise and such a blessing for the people of Kolomotua. This will also help this generation and the next. The Deputy President of the Australian Rotary Club, Sydney Huda, said this is part of their voluntary assistance for local communities.
With the assistance of the Rotary Club of Tonga, we've been able to put this building to its fruition, and I hope you get many years to enjoy it.
Meanwhile, the Nurse District of Awala told Television Tongan News that this will help better improve in the services to the public. Before the renovation work, the clinic will be leaking and flooded when it rains, but this new clinic is beautiful and secure. And we have a reception room as well. I am very happy with the renovation work done. During the program, the former president of the Nuku Alofa Rotary Club, Dr. Amanaki Whakakovi Kaetau, appealed to the Australian Rotary team to continue such assistance to local communities. More than 9,000 people who are using this clinic. There is hope for improvement in the health standards of the people of Kolomotua with the completion of this renovation work. From Kolomotua, I am Anasiu Falekaona for Television Tonga News.
From court today, the prosecutor on the trial for Lord Lakepa's alleged case of possession of illegal firearms is still preparing documents and evidence to present in court for the trial. So this is fast as the case will be held towards the end of the year. The prosecutor previously withdrew alleged charges against Lord Lakepa for possession of illegal drugs due to no substantial evidence. Manaki Kaufusi represented the accused in its last appearance in court for the alleged charges of possession of illegal drugs. People with disabilities are made aware of what to do in times of disasters. This is made possible through a one-week awareness training in light of the International Day for Disaster Reduction this Sunday. Anasiu Falekaono was there and filed this report.
The First Secretary from the Australian High Commission in Tonga, Mr. Scott McLennan, says the program looks at safe and resilient communities where children and people with disabilities contribute to managing and reducing the risks associated with climate change and natural disaster.
This program is timely with the observance of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction this week on the 13th of October with the theme of Living with Disability and Disaster. The four most at-risk countries in the world to natural disasters are in the Asia-Pacific region. More than 1.6 billion people have been affected by disaster in East Asia and the Pacific since 2000. Disaster risk reduction involves the resilience of a community, including vulnerable groups such as people living with a disability.
Taulonga Centre collaborates with the Tonga Community Development Trust in hosting this program. The Deputy Director of the Tonga Trust, Mrs. Papiloa Bloomfield Foliaki, stressed that it is important to include people who are physically challenged.
Where Her Majesty the Queen Mother have personally dedicated her time, her love, her fund to build this center to help the parents and the community of Tonga. We haven't got the right words to express our appreciation to your government and the people of your land who sacrifice over the years to save and put the development fund through Australian aid to benefit the people of this nation.
Attention is also focused on elderly people and other vulnerable people in the communities. Highlighted of this, Mr. Scott McLennan says there have been upcoming project which focuses on assisting the elderly. Participants at the week-long awareness training include representatives from government ministries, non-government organisations and members of Taulonga Centre. For Television Tonga News, I am Anasiu Falekaono.
Stakeholders are prioritising the importance of involving people from different walks of life in all disaster-related programs, especially people with disabilities. In a televised program on Television Tonga, the Tonga Community Development Trust highlighted these discussions on including people with disabilities in their various awareness and training programs. Sini Latu with that report.
The Tonga Community Development Trust and stakeholders are including people from all sectors of the community in its disaster risk reduction programs, and special attention is made to include people with disabilities. The Deputy Director, Papiloa Foliaki, is pleased with the initiative. It is heartwarming to see government departments such as the Ministries of Education, Lands, Agriculture, Health and the National Emergency Management Office working together to include everyone in its various disaster programs. That's the aim of the program, to include everyone, especially people with disabilities and those that are weak or vulnerable. Tonga Trust Program Manager, Naatayala, says they've included people who are physically challenged in one of their programs called 4CA. This year, people with disabilities are recognized internationally in regards to disasters. A theme has been set called Living with Disability and Disaster. Many of them are affected in times of disasters, not just natural disasters, but man-made disasters too. It affects both children and those with disabilities. The Agricultural Department recognizes various contributions which the more vulnerable people in the communities can help with in times of disasters. There are plans to develop a program for people with disabilities and vulnerable people in the society, such as the elderly. Many of them possess agricultural and fisheries knowledge that is vital for this generation. So we're planning to collect the information and use it as skills for times of disaster. Also taking part in the televised program was the Deputy Director of the Ministry of Lands, Environment, Survey, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Luisa Malolo. She emphasized the significance of stakeholders to working together for a common goal and purpose, especially in relations to climate change. It is included in our department's work plans to work closely together with government ministries, NGOs, communities and private sectors. We understand that climate change affects every sector and everybody. Together, we can better withstand the risk of climate change and disasters. An officer from the National Emergency Management Office, Mafuamaka, shares about their national disaster plan for people who are physically challenged. One of the tasks appointed to the committee in the communities is to plan what they will do before, during and after hazards. They also carry out a census. That plan is to include everyone, including people with disabilities. Only a few of these people are cared for in the Alonga and OTA centers, the rest are at home. The committee helps us know how many are out there and may need our help. This is one of the programs held to mark International Disaster Risk Reduction Day on October 13th. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
An expedition team from Finland and Northern Europe is exploring tour sites in the kingdom. The drive will further promote and expose Tonga as a tourist destination to European countries. Here's Linda Filiai with the details.
An expedition team from Finland and Northern Europe spent almost 2 weeks in Hawaii taking photos and collecting information about tourist sites on the island. They've also set up a website known as tongaexpedition.com, boasting information about the friendly islands. In a press conference, the team said more than 5,000 visitors have visited the website. Team leader Patrick Teckerman says he mooted the idea to come to Tonga almost 5 years ago.
It has been quite hard work. We're from Finland and Iceland, about 14,000 kilometers from Tonga. It's quite cold over there, and we have the possibility to get information. But still, information is the name of the game to do it safely. So that's why we then, at some point, you contacted Manatu Vivili, which has been a great help for us just to organize this thing and to get more information how we should do things on Tonga.
Over the past 20 years, he had held a number of expeditions around the world.
At the moment in Finland, the economy is not that good. And in Europe, it's also not that good. And people started getting a bit depressed and things like this. So we thought that let's do something that is ultra positive. If we go visually to a place like Hawaii, for example, beautiful place, and if we could broadcast these pictures, these stories to the Finns and to the other persons in the Northern Europe, that maybe would boost some of them to, let's do it, let's go for our thing, let's fulfill our dreams. By exploring, we are not cheating death, no, not at all. We are celebrating life. And this is the name of the game during this expedition.
The 8-member expedition teams includes a journalist, a doctor, a cameraman, and other members. They will hold a photo exhibition in Finland next year where they will display pictures and information about Tonga. More than 80,000 visitors are expected to view the display. The team will leave Tonga tomorrow.
That's local news. Pacific is next.